At Dad's garage, I was fixing his old truck when an envelope fell from the glove box. He barked, "That's not for your eyes." I opened it. The lake cabin, the classic car, the retirement money, all to my brother. I closed the hood and drove away. 8 months later, they called. My dad left everything to my brother. The lake cabin, the classic car, the retirement account with $160,000 in it. I found out while I was fixing his truck for free on a Saturday afternoon. My name is Ryan Calloway. I am 36 years old. I own a one-bay auto shop outside Granville, Ohio. I have been a licensed mechanic for 14 years. I understand how things are built, how they wear, and exactly at what point they fail. I have always been better at reading machines than people. That Saturday taught me the two are not as different as I had assumed. If you have ever been the one who showed up and found out later you were never actually on the list, this one is for you. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe so the next story finds you. I need to tell you who my father is before I tell you what he did, because the what means more when you understand the who. Gerald Calloway opened Calloway Auto in 1989 with a second-hand hydraulic lift, a checking account with $3,200 in it, and a handshake policy. He would never tell someone their car needed work it did not need. In a small town, that reputation is worth more than advertising. Granville has 5,000 people and 2 traffic lights, and everyone talks to everyone. Dad built the shop on the fact that people trusted him. He is 64 now. He is the kind of man who gives a firm handshake and means it as a statement about himself. He coached my brother's little league team for 4 years. He volunteers with the Fire Department Auxiliary. He is on the board of the Historical Society. When people in Granville think of Gerald Calloway, they think of a man who shows up, who keeps his word, who does right by people. That is a reputation worth protecting. It is also, I have come to understand, a reputation worth building an entire set of private arrangements around, so that what you do in the back room never has to match what people see from the street. Growing up, there were 2 Calloway sons. My brother Derek, 3 years older, who stayed local after high school, married a woman from 2 towns over, and settled into a life that kept him in a 30-mile radius of the garage. And me, I left at 18 for a 2-year automotive technology program in Columbus. Came back certified, took a job at a regional dealer for 3 years, saved money, and opened my own shop. The difference between Derek and me was not affection. Dad was not a coal man. He came to my shop opening. He shook my hand and told me he was proud, and I believe he meant it. The difference was proximity. Derek was there. He was at the garage on Saturday mornings. He knew which supplier Dad had been with for 20 years and which one he switched to in 2015 and why. He knew where Dad kept the insurance documents and who the accountant was and what the shop grossed in a good October. I knew how to fix the cars. That distinction matters. I did every repair on a 1967 Ford Mustang Fastback Dad had owned since before I was born. British Racing Green, 289 cubic inch V8, the original 4-speed manual. He drove it twice a year and kept it in the back bay of the garage under a canvas cover the rest of the time. I had done every oil change since I was 19. Every tune-up, both sets of brakes, twice. I sourced a correct spec carburetor from a parts house in Indiana in 2017 when the original finally could not be rebuilt anymore. The car ran the way it did because I made it run that way. Dad thanked me every time. He thanked me the way you thank a mechanic, not the way you thank someone whose hands are maintaining your most prized possession. There was a wrench in his toolbox I had made him when I was 16. Not purchased, made. I took a junk wrench from a pile at school, recalibrated the torque mechanism, fitted a new handle from a hardware store dowel, and carved my name into the grip with a wood-burning tool my shop teacher lent me over a lunch period. Ryan, block letters, 1 inch high. I gave it to him for his birthday, wrapped in newspaper, because I did not have gift wrap. He put it in the top drawer of his main toolbox that evening, and I saw it there every time I came to work on the Mustang. I thought that meant something about how he valued what I made him. I was right that it meant something. I was wrong about what? The lake cabin belonged to the family since my grandfather built it in 1974. 2 bedrooms, a screen porch, a dock that needed replanking every decade or so. I spent summers there as a child. In 2010, when I was 22, Dad mentioned the dock was soft in places, and he had gotten quotes from contractors that he thought were too high. I drove out on a Thursday after work, looked at the boards, bought the lumber and hardware on Friday, and spent Saturday and Sunday replacing the decking myself. 3 days total, in July. In Ohio, humidity that turns a lake afternoon into something you have to push through. I did not charge him. It was family property. I did not think about it as a transaction because I did not think about any of it as a transaction. That was my mistake, not the generosity, the assumption underneath it. Last October, Dad called and said the truck was hesitating on acceleration and pulling left under hard braking. He described it the way he always describes mechanical problems, in terms of how inconvenient it was for him, with the assumption that I would understand the technical failure from a description of the inconvenience. I told him I would come Saturday. He said fine. I cleared my afternoon. I drove the 30 minutes to Granville and pulled into the garage bay at noon. Dad was on the phone in the office, visible through the glass partition. He raised a hand without looking up. Derek was not around. I changed into my coveralls, opened the hood, and started. The hesitation was a dirty throttle body and a cracked vacuum line at the fitting. Straightforward. I had the parts in the truck. The brake pull was a stuck caliper on the front left, which I had been watching for 2 visits. I pulled the caliper, compressed the piston, installed the new unit, and was bleeding the line when I reached into the glove box for the owner's manual to confirm the brake fluid spec. The envelope came out with it. White, standard size, unsealed, folded once. It fell to the floor of the cab. I picked it up without thinking. The return address was visible before I unfolded it. Harmon and Associates. Estate Planning. Columbus, Ohio. I read it standing at the open door of the cab with one hand still holding the manual. Dad's voice came from the bay entrance. That's not for your eyes. I kept reading. He said again, 2 steps closer, a different register. I read to the last line. Then I folded the document, put it back in the envelope, and placed it on the passenger seat. I picked up my brake bleeder and went back to the caliper. Dad stood in the bay for a moment. Then he walked back to the office. I bled the line. I topped the reservoir. I drove the truck to the end of the block and back. The brakes were solid. The hesitation was gone. I parked it, put the keys on the workbench, picked up my toolbox, and walked to my truck. I did not say anything. Dad was watching from behind the office glass. I saw his face in the reflection of the window. I kept walking. Here is what the document said. Last will and testament of Gerald Thomas Calloway. Signed and dated June 14th of that year, for months before I read it in the cab of his truck. The Lake Cabin, to Derek Allen Calloway. The 1967 Ford Mustang Fastback, to Derek Allen Calloway. The retirement accounts, total approximate value, $160,000, to Derek Allen Calloway. The garage property and all business assets, to Derek Allen Calloway, contingent on completion of purchase agreement dated June 14th. To Ryan Thomas Calloway, the contents of the hall closet, specifically enumerated. 2 fishing rods, a tackle box, olive green, with the name Calloway written on the lid in marker. 1 canvas jacket, size large. I drove home and sat at my kitchen table. I did not turn on a light. The room went from afternoon to dark around me. I sat with my hands flat on the table the way I sit when a diagnostic does not make sense and I am waiting for it to. Then I opened my laptop and went to the county recorder's website. I want to stop here for a moment because some of you watching this know exactly the feeling I am describing. It is not rage. Rage is loud and it moves. This was something flat and precise. The feeling of a measurement that comes back wrong. The feeling of a thing that was always true finally showing you its face. If you have felt that, you know it does not need a name. Stay with me, because what I found when I started pulling records is exactly why, 8 months later, my phone rang with my father's number on the screen. I am a mechanic. I read documents professionally. Vehicle titles, lien histories, transfer paperwork, service records, inspection certifications. I know what clean documentation looks like, and I know what a problem looks like at a glance. I started with the garage property. There will reference the purchase agreement dated June 14th. Derek was buying the garage. I pulled the property records for Calloway Auto from the county recorder. The assessed value of the property was $222,000. I pulled 3 comparable sales from the same commercial corridor in Granville over the previous 18 months. The average sale price per square foot put the garage at $235,000 to $245,000 in the current market. I did not have the purchase agreement, but the will said $180,000. I did not need the agreement to understand the gap. Dad was selling his son a business worth close to $250,000 for $180,000, $55,000 below market, and he had structured a will around that transaction in the same month the agreement was signed. I wrote that number down on a notepad, $55,000. I circled it. Then I checked the Mustang. Ohio vehicle title records are accessible through the Bureau of Motor Vehicles online portal. I typed in the VIN I had memorized from the last time I serviced the car. The title history loaded in about 10 seconds. The Mustang had been retitled, not as a future estate transfer, not as a bequest pending probate. It had been retitled as a gift 8 weeks before I stood in that garage. The title now read, Derek Allen Calloway. The transfer was filed as a gift between family members. The appraised value at the time of transfer, listed on the filing, $38,500. Federal law requires a Form 709 gift tax return for any gift to an individual exceeding the annual exclusion amount, which that year was $17,000. A $38,500 car transferred as a gift exceeds that threshold by more than double. The Form 709 is not optional. It is a filing requirement. I pulled the IRS gift tax filing database through the Public Records Access portal. There was no Form 709 on file for the transfer. Dad had given Derek a $38,000 car and had not told the federal government. I sat at my kitchen table until 2 in the morning. Then I went to bed because I had a diagnostic scheduled for 7 and the situation would not change because I was tired. The next morning, I called Patricia Wren. I had found her through the Ohio State Bar referral line, specifically requesting an estate attorney with probate litigation experience. I told her the situation in under 7 minutes. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, the same month the purchase agreement was signed is the same month the will was executed? I told her yes. And the beneficiary of the will is the party who entered into the financial arrangement with the testator? Yes. She said that was a textbook undue influence scenario. A beneficiary who participates in a financial arrangement with the person writing the will, in the same period the will is drafted, creates a conflict that probate courts take seriously. The arrangement does not have to be coercive. It can be transactional. The question the court asks is whether the bequest was influenced by the external dealing. In this case, the timing was not ambiguous. She also said the Mustang transfer was a separate matter and potentially a cleaner one. A documented gift in excess of the federal threshold, with no corresponding tax filing, is a factual error with a paper trail. The IRS accepts complaints. They investigate. They are not fast, but they are thorough. I asked what she needed from me. She told me. I spent the following 3 weeks gathering it. Property records, title history, retirement account beneficiary designations obtainable as a potential heir, the will itself through the probate court filing. I went to work every day. I answer my phone. I fix cars. In the evenings, I built the file. Patricia filed a notice of potential will contest with the probate court in November. She filed a complaint with the IRS regarding the Mustang transfer the same week. And then, on her advice, I filed a property lien on the Calloway auto parcel. I had legal standing as a potential heir whose interest was under active dispute. The lien attached to the property title. It did not prevent Derek from operating the garage. It prevented a clean transfer of title. Any sale, any refinancing, any formal conveyance of that property would surface the lien in the title search. The transaction would stall until the encumbrance was resolved. I filed it on a Tuesday in early December. I did not call my father. I did not call Derek. I went to my shop on Wednesday morning and replaced the timing chain on a 2018 F-150. February, 8 months after the garage. My phone lit up with Dad's name while I was under a Silverado. I finished the repair, washed my hands, and listened to the voicemail. His voice was careful. He said things had gotten complicated. He said the garage paperwork was being held up, and he did not fully understand why. He said he hoped we could talk. I called Patricia. She confirmed the title company had surfaced the lien during Derek's loan underwriting. The bank could not fund the purchase without a clean title. The sale was suspended indefinitely. I called Dad back that evening. He answered on the second ring. I told him about the will contest. I told him about the undue influence grounds. I told him about the Mustang title and the missing Form 709. I told him about the lien. I gave him Patricia's contact information. I told him that any further discussion about the estate should go through her. He said, "You're doing this to your own family over a will." I said, "The will is the document your attorney filed with the probate court. I'm responding to the document. That's how it works." He did not have an answer to that. We ended the call. The probate proceeding ran 7 months. Patricia contested the will on undue influence grounds. During depositions, Dad was asked about the torque wrench. She had listed it in the disputed personal property inventory. An engraved tool, custom modified, with the name Ryan carved into the handle. Never Dad's property to include in a business equipment transfer. Dad was asked when he received it. He said I gave it to him. He was asked if he knew I had made it myself. He said yes. He was asked why he had included it in the equipment transfer to Derek. He was quiet, and he said he had not thought about it. He was asked to describe it. He talked about that wrench for 90 seconds. The balance of it, the way the handle sat in his palm, how he kept it in the top drawer because the calibration was better than anything he had purchased. He talked about it the way a man talks about a thing he cannot explain without explaining something about himself he does not intend to explain. Everyone in the room waited. He could not seem to stop. The wrench was the only object in that deposition he could face directly. The estate settled in mediation 9 months after I read that will in his truck. The garage sale was restructured at fair market value with a professional appraisal. The difference between the original price and market value, $58,000, was paid into the estate. My share of the full estate, distributed equitably across all assets, came to $71,000 after fees. The Mustang was returned to the estate and sold at auction. My share, $19,000. The lake cabin sold 4 months later. My share, $41,000. The IRS matter was resolved with a penalty and a corrected filing. Dad paid it. The torque wrench came back to me in a padded envelope. No note. I put it in my toolbox. It belongs there. Dad sent a Christmas card. It said he thought about things differently now. There was no apology in it. I read it, put it in the drawer, and went back to the bay. Derek runs the garage. I drive past it sometimes on the way to a parts supplier. The sign out front still says Callaway Auto. I do not feel what I expected to feel when I see it. I feel something smaller and more accurate. The way you feel when you check an old repair and find it held the way it was supposed to. I used part of the settlement to install a second lift in my shop. I had been renting lift time from the next bay over when I had 2 jobs at once. I do not do that anymore. My name is on the sign. It has been there for 4 years. My grandfather's cabin is someone else's now. I drove out once before the closing. Sat in the parking area for a while. The dock was still there. The boards I replaced in 2010 were darker than the original lumber, the way new would always is when it goes in next to old. You could see exactly where what was already there ended and what I had built began. I looked at it from the car. Then I drove home. That is my story. An envelope that fell from a glove box. 8 months of county records and patience. And the understanding that inheritance is not about love. It is about paperwork. Paperwork can be read by anyone who is willing to look. If this reminded you that a promise made out loud is worth less than a document filed with the county, take that with you. Read everything with your name on it. And if someone you know is being managed around instead of included in, send this their way. Drop a comment. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one. I will see you there.